As I thought about it, yes, it is pretty strange when you think about it, but there were a lot of visiting blues acts and only 1.5 TV channels, so they put them on those channels. At age 82, Mick Jagger, who was once the most famous rock and roll star, seems a long way from the life he had in the past. He used to be able to fill arenas with his boundless energy and magnetic charm, but now he has to deal with the quiet effects of getting older. He can't get back the memories of the past that are all around him. Riches and fame couldn't protect him from sadness, being alone and time going by all the time. How did the unstoppable symbol of youth and defiance get to the point where his life is so painfully sad? We're going to tell you the sad truth about MC Jagger's later years that has never been told before. But first, please subscribe to our station if you like MC Jagger. We talk about amazing stories about Western stars and old Hollywood stars. MC Jagger was born in 1943 in the small, quiet town of Dartford in Kent. He grew up in a world that was structured and focused on small goals. The values of Britain's middle-class order, schooling, and tradition shaped how he was raised. His father, Basil Joe Jagger, was a respected physical education teacher, and teachers had been in his family for generations. It was almost certain that Mick would follow the same well-paved path, which led to success in school and social standing. But Mick's spirit pulled him in a different way from the start. Before screens took the place of stories and songs, he came to life at family events by impersonating other people, playing upbeat music, and dancing on the spot. For Mick, what might have seemed like harmless fun was really a wake-up call. These shows weren't just for fun. People were getting ready for a different kind of life those quiet times. That spark had grown into something deeper and more important by the time he was 14. Mick was singing with local rock bands in dark clubs and smoky dance halls at night, even though his parents thought he was committed to school and a future made of books and rules. He told his family nothing about this life because he knew it went against their hopes for him. For them, the music world was a dangerous side trip into chaos and unreliability. For Mick, though, it was everything that the classroom wasn't: wild, exciting, and full of life. The cheers of people he didn't know gave him something that no test could. Proof that people saw, heard, and felt him. The beginnings of a legend were planted in those quiet exits and secret gigs. Not yet. He wasn't after fame. That mood and rhythm didn't fit into the neat world he was born into. It's hard not to wonder when you look back. Was he running away from something or just going to become the person he was always meant to be? Two boys used to go to Wentworth Primary School in the small English town of Dartford and talk to each other in the yard and in class, Jay-Z and Keith Richards. Their first friendship was simple and easy to forget, like many. Friendships from youth that fade over time. As they went to different middle schools and started their own lives, their friendships slowly fell apart as they became more accustomed to the normalcy of life in the suburbs after World War II. Luck, on the other hand, has a way of coming back around when no one expects it. Today, October 17, 1961, at 8 a.m., Mick, who was 18 years old, stood at Dartford railway station holding two records, Rocking at the Hops by Chuck Berry and The Best of Muddy Waters. He was on his way to the London School of Economics and looked like he was ready for a life of hard work in school. Neil Richards, who was also 18 and going to Sidcup Art College, saw the records under Mick's arm at that very stop. There was a spark. What started out as a quick hello between former classmates quickly turned into a talk that would be remembered for a long time in the history of music. Not just a get-together. It was the return of something they both didn't know was missing. On the gray train platforms where people were just talking, the two teens were talking about American blues, a style of music that is still mostly unknown in Britain but is full of rawness and revolt. Most of their friends liked to dance to polished pop songs, but Jagger and Richards were drawn to the rough, soulful music of Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, and Howlin' Wolf. They were more than just fans. They were fans of a sound that didn't quite fit in but called to them like a secret code. Soon after that meeting, Keith wrote a letter to his Aunt Patty that he would later include in his autobiography. In it, he talked about a boy from elementary school who, to his surprise, had become the best R&B musician this side of the Atlantic. This love was strong and quick. Mick asked Keith to come to practice with his cover band, Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys. It wasn't long before those friendly jam sessions turned into something important and unavoidable. As Brian Jones and Ian Stewart joined, the Rolling Stones' bass slowly began to take shape. There was a change in the dirty practice rooms and smoky clubs in London, one that wasn't built on fame but on a shared love of music, brotherhood, and the holy spirit of the blues. When I think about it now, that chance meeting at a quiet train stop seems almost too good to be true, like a story told by rock fans for generations. But it did happen. By chance, Two boys got back together, starting a relationship that would change music and society forever. If there hadn't been that short break in time, the world might never have heard the heartbreaking cry of "Give me shelter" or the defiant stomp of "I can't get no satisfaction." And to think that all it took to start such a big change was 2 songs, a train ride, and a look from an old friend. But that's how legends start. Not always in workshops or on stage, but when 2 lives meet in a quiet way to make something that lasts longer than both of them. Mick Jagger was quietly planning a very different future for a intellectually demanding, he said with some regret, but you make the best of it. Still, there's something creepy about the idea of MC Jagger that lies beneath all the fame and excitement. As someone who used to want to write articles instead of anthems, this song is a warning that behind rock's crazy legend was a young man who used to follow the rules until the music wouldn't let him. As of 1967, the Rolling Stones were more than just a strange new band. When a group yearned for change, they spoke out. But as the band's fame grew, so did the attention of the people. For MC Jagger, that year was both the peak of his early fame and a harsh lesson in how rebellion can cost a lot when it's in the public eye. It all started with a tip, whispered from someone who was said to be in the Stones circle. The vicious British newspaper News of the World learned about a party that was going to be held at Keith Richards's country estate, Redlands. The source, who was said to be a chauffeur, said that the meeting was scandalous and illegal. The newspaper, which never misses a chance to make a big story, quickly told the cops what happened. Then there was a raid that made headlines and shook the band's world. Cops went into Redlands expecting chaos, but they found a lot less than they thought they would. The so-called proof wasn't very strong. Police only found a few properly prescribed pills on Jagger. They did not belong to him, but to his then-girlfriend, singer Marianne Faithfull. In a moment that would define him, Jagger refused to shift blame. Instead, he chose to keep her from having to deal with the consequences. It was a shocking result. Many people thought that Jagger's 3-month prison term was way too harsh. An important part of the people knew this wasn't about pills. It was meant to silence the Stones, who had become a major societal force. It was Jagger's swagger and defiance that shook up the establishment, and now they were fighting back. But just when it looked like the system had worked to punish him, he found an unexpected friend. William Ream Moog, editor of The Times and a conservative elite figure, wrote a now-famous editorial called "Who Breaks a Butterfly on a Wheel?" In it, he strongly criticized how the law treated Jagger, saying that he wasn't being punished for a crime, but for what he stood for. What Rees-Mogg said touched a nerve across the country. I felt more sympathy. Things changed in the story. Jagger used to be called a bad kid, but now he was seen as a young man who was being unfairly picked on for being brave enough to stand out. Soon, the sentence was thrown out, and Jagger was set free. A heartbreaking quiet fell over the summer of 1969. It would follow MC Jagger and the Rolling Stones for years upon years. At the heart of that silence was Brian Jones, one of the band's founders and a brilliant musician who created their sound from the start. Jones was the band's main creative force in the beginning, but by the end of the decade, his inner demons had made his light dim, his mental health was getting worse, and the legal fights were making him feel even more alone. As the band got ready for a long, hard world tour, they could no longer ignore the growing stress. At some point, the inevitable could no longer be put off. Jagger dealt the final blow when he told his longtime friend and bandmate that he could no longer be a part of the group. It was an emotional moment that people still talk about. It wasn't because they were mean, they had to. It was hard to make the choice because I felt guilty about it. As a way of saying goodbye, the Stones gave Jones $100,000 and tried to make the breakup look like it was mutual, friendly, and without any problems. But behind the scenes, there was a lot of sadness in the air. Next, the disaster that no one saw coming or maybe had been afraid of the whole time. Brian Jones was found dead in his Sussex home's pool on the night of July 2, 1969, just a few weeks after he had left. Death by misadventure was the coroner's ruling. Even so, the facts of how he died are still not clear. There have been rumors of foul play, cover-ups, and unanswered questions that have made the tragedy worse and cast a long, unbreakable shadow over the band's past. After only 48 hours, the Rolling Stones played a show in London's Hyde Park that wasn't meant to be a memorial but turned into one. Jagger read a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley in front of a crowd of 200,000 people. The poem was an elegy for another soul who had died too soon. After seeing thousands of white butterflies fly up into the sky, it was clear that this wasn't a show. It was a goodbye and a public time to deal with sadness. Years later, when Jagger had a rare chance to think, she talked about those last few months with Jones. He said he felt bad about how he'd behaved, saying that his youthful arrogance and rising pressures had made him mean. "We were very young," he said. Jagger said, "and in some ways we picked on him." He hadn't fully grasped the depth of Jones's struggle, nor the pain he was carrying. "I wasn't understanding enough about his health." He said nobody really was. The Altamont Free Show happened in December 1969, just a few months after Brian Jones's death. It was another nightmare for the Rolling Stones, designed to reflect the peaceful spirit of Woodstock. Over 300,000 people came to the event at Altamont Speedway in California, but things quickly got out of hand. What was supposed to be a party turned into a symbol of the bad side of the counterculture. It was a spiritual and physical close call for the band. The Rolling Stones' bad choice to hire the Hells Angels to protect the 1969 Altamont Free concert was one of the worst moments in rock history. It would haunt them forever. The Angels, who were paid in beer and left alone, made the already tense crowd even worse by getting drunk and acting out. Meredith Hunter, 18, was stabbed to death near the stage during the Stone set, which caused a lot of trouble. A sad moment that was captured in the documentary Gimme Shelter